The United States will move a carrier strike group closer to Israel and has placed more military assets in the Middle East. President Joe Biden told Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that additional assistance is on the way in the coming days. Sky's Mark Stone has more.
The US is sending quite a few ships to the region, including an aircraft carrier. The US aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald Ford, is to be deployed to the Mediterranean just off the coast of Israel. Alongside that will be a missile cruiser, the USS Normandy, and then 4 guided missile destroyers, the USS Hudna, the Rampage, the Carney and the Roosevelt. So a significant US deployment of its own assets to a conflict which clearly the White House believes has the potential to spiral well beyond Israel-Palestine. The Defense Department says that the motive behind this deployment is to strengthen the Department of Defense posture in the region to bolster regional deterrence efforts. It is quite clear now that any hope that this would be contained to Gaza is probably misguided. It is likely to spread certainly to the West Bank. Lebanon and Hezbollah could become entangled in it as well, taking advantage of what they see as an Israeli weakness. And then, of course, beyond that, and I think this is the reason for such a deterrence deployment by America, beyond that is Iran. The Israelis clearly believe that ultimately this is Iran's work. Iran is ultimately responsible for what happened this weekend, for so many Israeli deaths. Now, Israel may decide to take action that the Americans will clearly want to have some control of, and that control begins with having the right military posture in the region. Beyond that, Mark, the Americans have said that they are also providing Israel with as much equipment as they might need. Now, for that, we're talking specifics, things like the missiles that are fired from the Iron Dome missile defense system, which will have been massively depleted over the course of the weekend. So defensive measures, I would think, for Israel in terms of missiles so that it can restock its Iron Dome. That is one aspect of it. The bigger news is Joe Biden's decision to send a significant naval force to the region, and on top of that to augment, as they put it, America's Air Force capability in the region, probably from Incirlik Air Base in Turkey, but perhaps from Cyprus as well.
The United States.
Shalom, 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 shalom. As always, first I want to give all the praises and the glory to Yahweh, Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai, Ba'asham, Rakak, Kodash. Yahweh is the name of the Most High, Yahweh Shai is the name of the Son. Double honors to the apostles and to the elders of the great millstone. Shalom to the hopeful elect brothers and sisters of the house of Israel, to the true children of Israel. Shalom. So this is just give me a quick breaking news update. America is sending warships and a strike force, military assistance, and a carrier strike force warships to Israel. America is sending a carrier strike force, warships, and military assistance to assist Israel in this conflict. So, when we tell you, boy, that this thing is going to escalate to much wider than people think. I said this yesterday. When I broke the news yesterday, I said this yesterday. Yesterday morning when I got up and I saw this thing, I got up and I made a video on this to say, look, this is what's happening. That this could be the fuse, the match that lights the hay. This could be the fuse that we've been waiting for everything to get going into another direction, which is the war of Armageddon. Now, we always tell you that the microchip must be in play before the missiles are fired, but the war can still be raging before the chip goes global. But the missiles won't be fired. The missiles won't be fired until the chip goes global. So this thing is moving. Hezbollah, who is backed by the Iranians, had fired missiles into Israel this morning. Hezbollah made a public statement. They was on telly telling the Israelis if they go into Gaza by ground force, they are going to enter into northern Israel from southern Lebanon. Iran has told Hezbollah, we are backing you 100%. Iran has told Hamas, they are backing them 100%. The Israelis believe now that it was the Iranians that organized this military invasion by Hamas. The New York Post, not New York Post, the New York Times is printing an article saying that it was the Iranians. This is what is in the New York Times today. Apparently, it's coming out this morning. Right? Right now, it's 11:30 p.m. Sunday, the 8th of October, 2023, 11:30 p.m. in the United Kingdom. Apparently, tomorrow morning's paper in the New York Times is going to say that it was the Iranians that organized this whole thing with Hamas in this invasion. This is why the Israelis never knew nothing about it. So this is what the New York Times is reporting, apparently. So I'm not sure if there's an article about that already online, but this is what I heard just on the news a short while ago, saying it was Iran that let's see if I can find it. It was Iran that worked with Hamas to do this. I'm not sure if it's in it. If there's I'm just trying to see if I can find it. If it's not, I'm just going to leave it. Yeah. This is what they say in the New York Times is reporting. Listen, this thing is not going to quieten down. It's not going. They apparently over 700 Israelis have been killed. 700. This is what the latest figures are I'm seeing on the news. 700 Israelis have been killed. So there's no way this is going to reverse. We'll keep an eye on what the New York Times is saying, but this is what I heard on the news anyway. So it's all happening. And then I saw this footage here. All right. Fair use. This video contains some people may find distressing. Okay, fair use. We're just reporting on the incident and we are prophesying on the incident because we understand what's going on. So this is what, as you can see, right? They were raging. These are the Israelis raging at a rage. You can see coming through the clouds. That's Hamas in the paragliders, in the light, the bright light. You see the spotlight that they're showing you there. That's the Hamas fighters infiltrating Israel by paragliding overhead. Now these are the Israelis at some big outdoor rave. While they was coming, they didn't even know that they was coming in on them. Watch this. Before YouTube loses its mind, this video is all over YouTube and every news channel is broadcasting it. So we have the right, freedom of speech, freedom of publicity, freedom of comment. We have the right to show this video. This video is being up on YouTube for the last 24 hours. Everybody has it up showing. Moments later, Read. Shooting and kidnapping them. Gunshots. Eyewitnesses said gunshots were fired into an encircled crowd as hundreds of party goers fled the site. The Israelis are not going to leave this family. When I tell you, what you have to understand about pride and ego when it comes to these Edomites, they're not going to leave this line. They are going to go all in. Right now, Prime Minister Netanyahu is going to they call it the Knesset, which is like the Senate or the House of Parliaments in Israel, to officially declare war against the Palestinians. And that's them kidnapping them. They're not going to leave. They're not going to leave this line. Fair use, fair use, fair use. The aftermath. So anyway, they're not going to leave this line. It's Hamas, the Palestinian militant group that controls Gaza Strip, launched one of the broadest invasions on Israel territory for 50 years. This is going to be an all-out war. Hezbollah is going to have to get involved. The head of Hezbollah was on TV a short while ago, and he said all of the Arab nations have to decide whose side they're on. They're either going to come together and fight alongside Hezbollah, fight alongside Iran, fight alongside Hamas. This is what they're saying. This is what the Hezbollah leader said. They're going to have to put their differences aside, and they have to fight. And they're going to have to fight alongside their fellow Muslim brothers. This is what they're saying. They're calling for the Houthis out of Yemen to join the fight. You've got the Houthis, which are backed by the Iranians in Yemen. They're calling for them. They're telling Turkey that they cannot assist the Americans in sending any, because America's got a base in Turkey, that they can't assist America in any attacks on Hamas. So they're basically, it's a call to all of their Muslim brothers. This is what they're doing. So the drums of war are beating hard. And I said this before, everything that we see going on is going to lead us to the war of Armageddon, World War III. Everything. The Russian, the UN ambassador, the Russian UN ambassador, when he made his speech today in the United Nations today, he's calling for an emergency United Nations security meeting. They had a meeting. He came out. He said that what he said is that the two sides have to put down their arms and come to the negotiating table. But things won't. But then he said it's pointless then coming to the negotiating table if the 50 years of oppression, the decades of oppression is not going to change, he said. He said, the only way this is going to be, he said the decades of oppression that the Palestinians have been facing under the Israelis has to come to an immediate end when they come to this negotiating table. While the Americans were saying, let the Israelis do what they have to do to get back their people, their soldiers and their civilians that are being taken by Hamas. The Americans were saying that we're just backing the Israelis 100%. They can do what they want to get them back. While the Russians were saying they should come to the negotiating table, but it's the only reason they're going to be able to do that is if the decades of oppression by the Israelis comes to an immediate end. And remember, the Israelis don't see, from the Israelis' eye view, I view, they don't see that they're oppressing the Palestinians. The Americans can't see that they're oppressing the Palestinians because they're all the same. But remember what I said to you. The Russians are backing the Iranians. The Iranians are backing Hezbollah. If Hezbollah goes into this fight, you can be sure to guarantee that the Israelis are going to strike Iran. Because if this report comes out tomorrow, like I said, that says that the New York Times are saying that it was Iran that planned this with Hamas, the Israelis will, with their ego and their pride, they will strike certain military bases in Iran. And if they do that, Iran will retaliate. Now, if America does a strike on Hezbollah or the Iranians, then you can expect the Russians to come down. So it's all happening. We're getting there. Truly, we're getting there. But remember, and I have to keep reiterating this, the mark of the beast must be in play before the war of Armageddon goes from a conventional war to a nuclear war. So a conventional war can happen and can be in play, but the nuclear war won't be in play until the microchip goes global. Just always remember that point there. That's a major part of these prophecies being fulfilled. But it's all happening. So I'm just gonna look. What we are seeing happening right now is the book of Joel chapter 3. And I think I might have read this the other day. And it just comes into play. Judgment against the nations. All right. This is what we're seeing. I will gather the armies of the world. Listen carefully. This is what the Lord is doing right now. This is what you are seeing taking place in the Middle East. And we've always told you that no matter how hard they try to leave the Middle East, the Lord is going to drag them back. Because this is where his judgment is going to take place. This is where it's going to all start. This is where it's going to break out. This is where all of the global powers are going to come head to head in the Middle East. So I'm just reading this from the NLT, which is the New Living Translation. I would normally be reading this from the KJV, all right? I'd normally be going to the KJV, read Joel chapter 3, all right? But I'm going to read it from the NLT because it's easier for certain people, especially for the new people, to understand what it is we are truly talking about. The nations will be judged. This is what you must understand. This is what the Lord is preparing. The Lord is preparing the nations to be judged. And that judgment is going to begin in the Middle East, in the valley of Jehoshaphat. Judgment against enemy nations, because the Most High sees them as his enemies, because they all played a part in the captivity of his children. That's why it says at the time of those events, these events here that we are seeing taking place, this is just part of the gathering of the nations in the Middle East. Says the Lord, when I restore the prosperity of Judah and Jerusalem. The Lord is talking here about the true children of Israel, the Hebrew Israelites, 12 tribes. He's not talking about those people in the land of Israel today that call themselves Israelis. He's talking about the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade. He's talking about the descendants of the Native American Indian tribes of North, South America, and Canada, today who they call Latinos, Hispanics, Mexicans, and Puerto Ricans. Those people, alongside the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade, are the true 12 tribes of Israel. Those are the true children of Israel. Those are the Hebrew Israelites. This is who the Lord is talking about. He's getting ready to restore the prosperity of the 12 tribes of Israel, but only the elect. Not all of us. Not all of us are going to make it, because not all of us are going to believe the prophecies. Not all of us are going to believe that Yahweh, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ as our Savior, of Israel, I'm talking about, of the true children of Israel. Not all of the true children of Israel are going to believe this. Not all of the Israelites are going to wake up to their true heritage and accept that they are the true children of Israel, that they're not Jamaicans, they're not Nigerians, they're not Ghanaians, they're not Cameroons or from Guinea, they're not Haitians, they're not Dominicans, they're not Peruvians or Colombians or Brazilians or, Chile, Mexicans, they're not African Americans. They are the true children of Israel. They are the descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel. The Lord is getting ready to restore his people. So these events must take place before he does that. This war. So the prophet Joel is telling you here, the Lord has told the prophet Joel, I will gather the armies of the world. It's going to be a world. This is why it's called World War III. China's going to be involved in that war in the Middle East. The Russians, the Iranians, the Americans, Britain's going to be involved, France, Germany, all of the NATO allies. This is where they're going to come head to head. We told you before, what you see happening in Ukraine is just the Russians getting battle hardened for this war of all wars that's going to take place in the Middle East. That's all. That's the Russians getting battle hardened and getting their artillery and their armory ready for the war of all wars. So by the time the Russians come down into Israel, they're going to be battle hardened from the war in Ukraine. Good to go. You know when you put something in the oven and you're waiting 2-3 hours for it to cook? That's the Russians. It says, I will gather the armies of the world into the valley of Jehoshaphat. Now the word Jehoshaphat means the valley of God's judgment. All right, I'm going to show you. I have to show you. I am excited because this is the only way the kingdom of heaven is going to be ushered in. This is what we must understand. This is the only way the Lord comes back to set up his people, to be the ruling people of this world, to be the new rulers of this world. This is the only way you're going to receive, the Lord's people are going to receive immortality and their spiritual powers to rule over the nations. This has to happen. The word Jehoshaphat means God. His word is not, his name is not Jehovah. His name there should say Yahweh has judged. This is where he's going to judge the nation. This is where it's all going to kick off. It's symbolic. It's a symbolic name of a valley near Jerusalem, which is the place of ultimate judgment. I can't say this enough. We've been telling you this. The word Jehoshaphat is a symbolic name because that's what it means. God, Yahweh's judgment of a valley near Jerusalem, because the actual place Jehoshaphat actually exists in Israel. The valley of Jehoshaphat is an actual place that exists, but it's symbolic. Name in Jerusalem, which is the place of ultimate judgment. This is where it's going to take place, in the Middle East. So the Lord is bringing these nations down to the valley of Yahweh's judgment. This is where he's going to judge them. He wants them to go to war. They're going to go to war before the Lord, Yahweh, the Son of the Most High, Yahweh, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, Michael the Archangel, Gabriel, Uriel, Raphael, the 7 archangels, and the legions of angels are going to come in the midst of this war. There will I judge them. Why is he going? The main reason the Lord is judging them is for this, for harming my people, for taking the Lord's people and putting them in slavery, putting them on slave ships, putting yokes of iron around their necks. It's for this. This is the main reason. If I type in yoke of iron, I ain't even got to put slave ships. Who comes up? Deuteronomy 28:48. God warns the Israelites, the true children of Israel, if they fail to serve him properly, which we did, he would allow their enemies to fit them with a yoke of iron. You understand? That's what happened to us. They put yokes of iron around our necks during the transatlantic slave trade. They did the same thing to the Native American Indians when they brought them from the Americas to Europe. They had put yokes of iron on the Native American Indians' neck, put them on slave ships, took them from the Americas. Columbus was the first to do this. He took them from the West Indies, the Taino and the Arawak Indians, and brought them to Europe as slaves. The Portuguese was bringing us from the west coast of Africa. They put us on slave ships. They put yokes of iron around our neck, brought us to the Americas to build this place that is going to be prepared for destruction in the future. And we're in this future now. So Deuteronomy 20:48 tells you, he would allow their enemies to fit them with a yoke of iron. Clearly, the yoke of iron, a heavy, uncomfortable, unyielding, confining restraint, is an implement of destruction used by the Most High to punish his people, which are the Israelites, the Hebrew Israelites, children of Israel, the children of Zion, for their sins. This is what he did. So if we look at transatlantic slave trade, this is what he did. This is what happened to us. They put yokes of iron around our necks and brought us to the Americas. That's gonna go. That's what they did. Yokes of iron. Brought us on the slave ships. Brought us to the Americas. This is what they did. This is what the Edomites did. See the yokes of iron? Yokes of iron. That's what they did. Around our wrists, around our necks. That's because we stopped following the laws, commandments, and statutes. They put yokes of iron around our necks and our children's necks. But what they don't realize, what these people don't realize today, who they did it to was the true children of Israel. This is why there will never be any peace in the land of Israel. And they did the same thing to the Native American Indians. They put yokes of iron around their neck and brought them to Europe, massacring the Native American. This is what Esau did, the so-called white man. They had us in captivity. So these are the Most High's people. See the yokes of iron around our thing? Even if I was to say images here, this is what they did to us. This is what they did. So there's no getting around this. Yokes of iron. That's what Esau did. See, Deuteronomy 28 and 48. The Lord's name is Yahweh. The Son's name is Yahweh Shai. I'll keep showing you, man. Remember Roots, Toby? I mean, this is the perfect picture. Well, this is what they did. So it was a punishment because we stopped following the laws, commandments, statutes. But what you have to understand, this is why there will never be any peace in the land of Israel or on planet Earth until the Lord comes back to deliver these people out of these yokes of iron that was put around our necks. And the yokes now is an economic yoke that they've got around us now, basically, right? So if we go back, so it says, I will plead them for my people, for my heritage, Israel. Let's go back to here, NLT. Then will I judge them, who? For harming my people, my special possession, for scattering my people amongst the nations, and for what? And for dividing my land. Now, who is the land of Israel divided amongst? It's divided between the Arabs, the Ishmaelites, that call themselves Palestinians, and there are Israelites mixed amongst them that think they're Muslims or Palestinians, but they're actually Israelites that are living amongst those Palestinians. But the land was divided between the Arabs, the Ishmaelites, and the Edomites, the so-called white man. So between the so-called Arab man, which are the Ishmaelites, and the so-called white man, which are the Edomites. They divided the Lord's land between them, and they scattered us, because the Arabs played a major part in transatlantic slave trade, and then they scattered us to the four corners of the world. This is what they did. And then they divided the land of Israel between them. So it says, they threw dice to decide which of my people would be their slaves. They traded boys to obtain prostitutes and sold girls for enough wine to get drunk. This is what they did. This is what the devil did. So what you see going on in Israel is going to continue until the Lord comes back. So it says here, I just want to go. Jump down to the war part. There's so much in there. So much in there. So this is what the Lord is doing now. He's saying, come quickly, all you nations everywhere. Gather yourselves together in the valley. Which valley? The valley of decision, the valley of Jehoshaphat. And now, O Yahweh, call out your warriors, which are the angels that are going to come in the midst of this war. Remember, I keep stipulating this, the microchips got to be in play before the nuclear missiles are fired and before the Lord and the angels come back. Let the nations be called to arms. So this is what you see happening now. You are seeing the nations being called to arms. Every time they think they can get out of the Middle East, they've been called back. And I'm hoping this is the final call. This is the match that strikes it all off. Let them march to the valley of Jehoshaphat, the valley of where? Of Yahweh's judgment, the valley of God's judgment, where he's going to judge the nations. There I, the Lord, will sit. To do what? To pronounce judgment on them all. Swing the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. So we're just waiting for the harvest to get absolutely ripe before the Americans come head to head with the Russians and their allies, before NATO and the Americans come in to defend Israel against Russia and the Iranians who are going to invade Israel. That's the Bible prophecy. The Russians are going to invade Israel alongside the Iranians and their allies. And then NATO and America is going to come to Israel's defense. That's when it's all going to go Pete Tong. And if you don't know what Pete Tong means, look it up in the Cockney. Pete Tong, T-O-N-G. Look it up. Swing the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, tread the grapes, and the winepress is full. This is all parabolic language for the readiness and the amount of bloodshed that's going to take place. The storage vats are overflowing with the wickedness of these people. Starting with who? Those people in the land of Israel calling themselves Israelis. They are the top Edomites. Thousands upon thousands are waiting in the valley of decision. Thousands, because they're going to be the armies from all the different nations. They're going to be hundreds of thousands of men and women are going to be in the Middle East, in the valley of Jehoshaphat, in the barren desert. They're going to be in what we know today as Saudi Arabia, in that part there, Israel, Syria. That's where they're all going to come together. There the day of the Lord will soon arrive. The sun and the moon will grow dark and the stars will no longer shine. That's when the nukes are going to be fired. But like I said, before we get to this nitty-gritty stage, the microchip must be in play. The Lord's voice will roar from Zion, the thunder from Jerusalem, and the heavens and the earth will shake, because the chariots are going to come in the midst of these nuclear missiles being fired. But the Lord will be a refuge for what? For who? For the world? No, for his people. A strong fortress for the people of Israel. He's not coming to deliver everybody out of their destruction. Only the elect of the children of Israel. And remember, the world is not going to be destroyed. The world is going to come under a new rulership, righteousness. It's going to come under the rulership of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, who the world ignorantly calls God and Jesus Christ. It's going to come under the rulership of the Hebrew Israelites, the 144,000 of the 12 tribes of Israel and the nation of Israel. But not all of our people are going to be saved, because not all of the Israelites are going to believe in the prophecies. They're not going to believe that they're the Israelites. They're not going to give reverence to the Most High and to Yahushua. They're not going to show their faith and their belief and their trust in the Lord. They're going to be giving their trust to Esau, the Edomites, the so-called white man, and to the other nations. They're not going to put their trust in the Lord. That's why the Lord says 2/3 of us are going to perish, of the children of Israel. So this is where it's all coming to. And what we must understand, let's say Isaiah 2. I'm curious what it says here. See, it says the Most High's universal reign. That's what's coming. That can't come until the Lord comes. The Lord's future reign. Now, this is the vision that Isaiah, the prophet, the son of Amos, saw concerning Jerusalem and Judah and Jerusalem, meaning the 12 tribes of Israel. In the last days, which is what we're in now, we're in the latter days of the last days now. The mountain of the Lord's house. The word mountain is parabolic for the word government. Remember, what do they keep? The G7, they keep a summit. They go to the summit. A summit is the top of a mountain. They have the G7 summit where all the leaders of the world come together. So the word mountain here is parabolic for the word government. So the government of the Lord's house, the 144,000, will be the highest of all. This is what's going to happen when the Lord comes back. He's going to be sitting on his throne in Jerusalem. King David on his throne in Jerusalem. The 12 disciples, the 12 apostles, the 144,000, the prophets. They're all going to be sitting on their thrones with their crowns. But Yahushua is going to be the King of Kings. He's going to be leading everyone. So he's going to be the head of the Lord's house. His son Yahushua. It will be the highest of all. The most important place on earth is going to be Jerusalem. It will be raised above the other hills, the other governments. Parabolic language for the other governments. Because after we've subdued all of the nations and the governments, we're going to rule over them. Because we're going to have spiritual powers. We're going to be immortal. We're going to have chariots, what they call UFOs and UAPs. We're going to be like the X-Men. So it says, it will be raised above the other hills. And people from all over the world will stream there to worship. Because all of the nations are going to, all of these religions, from Islam to Judaism, to white Jesus, Christianity, they're all going to be put to bed. Every single one of them. Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism. All of these religions are going to be put to bed. It says, people from many nations will come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, to the house of Jacob's God. Who is Jacob? Jacob is the forefather for the 12 tribes of Israel. Jacob's name was changed to Israel. Who is Jacob's God? The Most High, Yahweh. Who is Yahweh sending to set up this kingdom of heaven and earth? His son, Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. It says, there he will teach us his ways. We're going to have to teach these nations the law, commandments, and statutes, and we're going to rule them with a rod of iron. And we will walk in his paths, for the Lord's teachings will go out from Zion. Zion are a people before it's a place. So the Lord's teaching are going to come from his people, from the men of Israel. The women are going to be at home. The men are going to be bringing these laws, commandments, and statutes to all of the nations that survived the War of Armageddon. America is going to be totally destroyed by nuclear fire and never inhabited again. So America is going to become a memorial for the world to see. His word will go out from Jerusalem. This is what's going to take place when the Lord comes back in the midst of World War III. The Lord will mediate between nations and will settle international disputes. Because we're going to rule over them. We're going to tell them who's going to have what. We're going to decide who's going to get what lands, what this, what that, who's going to do what works, who's going to be the first slaves, who's going to be assigned to this plantation, that plantation, what work's going to have to do. We're going to decide everything. They will hammer their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. So all of their weapons of wars are going to become weapons to plow the fields, to work the plantations, to do the harvesting, to build houses and row. They're going to go to work. Because there's going to be quite a lot of destruction going on around the world. Nation, this is what's going to happen when the kingdom of heaven is established on earth, will no longer fight against nation nor train for war anymore. That will only happen when the Lord's children are returned back to the promised land. And those are the true children of Israel. So right now, nations are fighting against nations and they are training for war right now. Why? Because the true children of Israel are not back in the promised land. The Lord's people are not back in Israel. They're not in the promised land. And that can't happen until the Lord himself turns up. He has to bring them home. He has to take down the nations with the angels, and he has to bring the true children of Israel back home. So what you see going on is because those are not the children of Israel. Nation will no longer fight against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. We're not going to get to this part until the true children of Israel returned home. So I don't need to say anymore. I just want to bring that up to let you know.
Group closer to Israel.
That's why they're bringing a strike group closer to Israel, because the Lord had gathered all of the nations in preparation for this war of all wars, which is the Bible refers to as the war of Armageddon. So on that note, I want to give all the praises and the glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakah, Kodash. Yahweh is the name of the Most High. Yahweh Shai is the name of the Son. Shalom, shalom, shalom. As I always say, brothers and sisters, keep praying, keep safe, repent, and hold on to this truth. Because I can't say this enough, and I say it all the time. We're at the door. We're at the door. Don't let them take away your crown.